Hi. So, my point for the Journey to Life blogs discussion is a self-forgiveness statement of the Creation's Journey to Life blog, and I will start with reading it. I forgive myself that I have accepted and allowed myself to not realize that what the parent will recognize in a newborn baby as personality are the physical points transferred by the parent to the newborn that formed the form of the newborn, and the parent will thus recognize some of themselves in the newborn, and the more the parent love part of themselves they see in the child as either the parent self or the desired parent self, the more the parent will automatically favor the child, and the more the child will embody what the parent dislikes, the more the parent will have a lesser connection with the child, and this is formed at the first glance of the child at birth and will represent the physical bond and the nature of the bond that will exist with the child, and will determine the nature of the relationship that will develop between the parent and the child. So, 2 days before I had a discussion with my parents about my birth, because I brought up the point, and I brought it up in an emotional way, and because the point that I brought up with it was that my head was formed like an egg. It was pressed together when I was born, and I made like statements. You surely thought that I'm like misformed or misaligned or disabled, and my mother said no, and my father said yes, we thought this. So I forgot about the point, and a day or 2 days later I read the blog, and as I read the words first glance of the child at birth, then the point came back to me, and I realized basically that really in the first moment there is a connection created, and this is obviously dependent on the visual factor, on the impression that the parent get from the child, from what the parent sees. And in this single statement has supported me very much to see that it is really so that in the first moment what the parents, for example, experience will have an lifelong impact on the relationship, on the play out of the whole relationships and the lives of the beings in the family, for example. Now for me, what was then I left the point, and at the next day I looked again at it, or it came up again, and I looked at it more specific, and yeah, words came up like misformed, misaligned. In German we have the word that is very specific, verzogen. It's like screwed or spoiled, and this obviously is also like very cool, for example in the connection with the rotten child syndrome, the spoiled child. Yet, so I mean, in English it's spoiled like rotten, but the word verzogen in German is or in this context is like the form is not aligned, it's misformed, verzogen. And so I wrote with these words. No, at the same in the same day I went with a bike, and at a point was still there, and I looked at it more, because what I actually was the basic point in this is, or the basic definition that remained with this, was then failure. And from this failure point I could basically see that I have my whole life defined myself as a failure, what I would never really admit to myself or someone else. And rather define myself as, for example, different, or not fitting in, not being good enough, obviously. Yet all these points I would not accept to admit to myself that I would define myself as failure or not good enough, but I would, for example, cover this up with various hate, defining myself as hater, or as a hating being, or as a different, not fitting in, outsider, outlaw, rebel, all this these definitions. And yeah, so even if I have, for example, failed at school, or in relationships, or various points, yet I would not admit this in any way whatsoever, but I would always find ways to use this failure definition, to use this failure point to define myself with, as something different, as I said, like an outlaw, rebel, or hater, only to make myself right in my own eyes. And and have some character to play that I could identify myself with and not face, for example, the failure definition, because this was, I felt also, for example, unwanted with my parents, or thinking about if I do not really belong to this family. And so this this was then, or it is quite a supportive point for me, because in this I can realize that I have defined myself as a failure from very long, from the beginning, and then identified myself with this definition to such an extent that I would, as said, deliberately be and live as this failure in the system, in every system, because justifying and excusing this with I'm not wanted anyway, I am this failure being that's not fitting in, simply that's not aligned with what is here. And I mean, in this the point is so supportive because of me not seeing and having no chance to see how where this comes from. I mean, and where this came from. I had always this experience of just not being good enough, just not fitting in, but without the starting point to see that it was or is an illusion from the start. I would identify myself with it so much that that there is no that I would believe this to be really me. So this was or is still obviously a big point in my ego construction, in my ego, in my personality, in my character play outs and playing that I do, is to protect myself from the perception of failure. And this I can now work with and forgive myself, seeing that I do not have to separate myself from failure or to not admit failure, but I can simply say that, or accept that failure exists from a perspective of things not being done in the best way, not being aligned to what is best for me, what is best for all, is a failure. Participating in ego is basically a failure, and yeah, I mean, the real value of this point was for me that I could also in a moment or for a time see that so much of my ego, or basically everything of my ego, is an illusion, and it is not necessary. For example, this fighting to defend my apparent failures that I have made, or to defend what I define as ego, or to defend the past, to defend that I have been right in what I have done, and because it was not right, but I was also not I do also not have to feel guilty and completely regret everything, because from a perspective before one has the tools to investigate oneself, and for example self-forgiveness, to forgive oneself, one is more or less simply following along this pre-programmed pattern, and now this is this was cool to see that it was not real, and I'm also not extremely fucked up or bad or wrong or whatever because I have failed. And so cool blog. Thanks for the blog, and thanks for all the cool vlogs. Thanks for all the blogs, and bye.